Next up is a product here. It is the Masters brush cleaner. Now this is really cool to use, especially if you've gone out and maybe spent that bit of extra cash on something fancy like the Winsor & Newton Series 7 paintbrushes. These paintbrushes are really good, and they really do sort of improve your paint work, and it really does help to keep them in prime condition as if like the day you brought them. Now this, I have already done a product review of this on the Genesis Models website, so if you want to go there, check that out and find a bit more detail about this product and how to use it, and sort of more details about it. But it is definitely worth it, especially when it comes around to using stuff like enamel products. I know some people have said the quickest way to destroy your Series 7 paintbrush is use things like enamels and oil paints and all those kind of products. As much as that might be true, these are still pretty good durable paintbrushes, and if you do, and especially after using enamels and oils, if you do, make sure you go off and you clean it with this stuff. It doesn't really damage it at all. I mean, I have had this particular 00 paintbrush. It's my sort of preferred size, it's my go-to paintbrush. Had it for like 3 years and it's still as good as the day I've had it, and I have been using oils, enamels, even lacquers with it, acrylics, absolutely everything, but I always clean it with this, and you know, it does help. It really is you know, a good tip to use if you're going to go down that route of more expensive paintbrushes. So I'm now going to leave this gloss to nicely dry. I mean, you could go off, leave it overnight to dry, to be safe, to make sure it's all nice and cured, so it's all ready to take the wash that's going to go on after this. But in all honesty, I kind of just leave it an hour and then I crack on with it. You probably shouldn't, but you can get away with it. But you could have problems if you don't leave it overnight, but generally you don't, because you know that varnish really does dry really quickly. So I'm going to let that dry for an hour. We're now all nicely glossed up and left that for a nice hour to dry. Now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start using an enamel based wash, or with this one it's a panel line wash Black Knight, and that's by Amo Mig Jimenez, and that's 1611. Basically it's a nice black, really sort of thinned down enamel. I mean, it's used for panel lines, but I mean you can use it as a wash and a filter at the same time, really. And what we're going to do is we'll need to give it a good shake, make sure we get everything that's sedimented off of the bottom, right? And then I'm just going to come in with a nice flat number 2 paintbrush, right? And I'm just going to dip right into here, and nice and easily, we're not going to like mess about doing pin washing or anything. We're just going to blast this all on. Now what I like about the enamel wash over, say, your usual Games Workshop washes, is an enamel wash really has a nice bit of capillary action, and what this means is the wash really does nicely flow, and it flows better into all the little raised areas, nooks, crannies, recesses, rivets, right? And you'll sort of see how it just lovelily goes into all these areas rather nicely. You can sort of see how it's really sort of gone in to these recessed panel lines. It's still a bit on the flat surfaces, but that's not exactly a big deal. We can sort of sort that out later, or even leave it if you really want to go for a grubby look. It just makes it nice and easy just to get your paintbrush and just brush it all over. And then with this enamel stuff, I mean, you want to maybe leave it for like half an hour to an hour to dry a bit. You don't want it to cure, because we are going to rehydrate and play around with this and just make it that little bit, look that little bit better. We've now given that enough time to dry. Now what you can see is, okay, we've got all our recesses nicely filled in, but we have got it looking a little bit grubby. Nice and easy, because we're using enamels, they are so easy to rehydrate. So if we go off and get some enamel odorless thinners, which is 2018, also by Amo, I do recommend you do stick with the manufacturer's sort of recommended enamel thinners, because they are designed to be of the right strength for the job. You know, if you go to a DIY store and buy some cheap thinners or turpentine or something like that, it can be really strong and really just eat right into your paint. This is just nicely, just perfect the way it is. So what we're going to do, we're just going to get out some cotton wool buds and a paintbrush. And what we could do, there's two ways we can sort of tidy this up. On the top part here, where we've got some nice you know, flat bits, right, we can get our cotton wool bud, open up our enamel thinners, dip in, right, so our cotton wool has got some nice enamel thinners on there. Get a kitchen paper towel, we're then just going to roll it across, right, because we want our cotton wool bud to be damp, not soaking in thinners. We don't need a lot of thinners on here at all. Then what we're going to do is we can just simply wipe across this like so. It's a nice flat surface, one or two quick wipes, right. We don't want to be wiping loads, right, because what potentially starts to happen is because we're rehydrating it, we're rehydrating the flat surfaces first, and we can wipe them away nice and quick. But if you keep on wiping, you're eventually going to wipe it out of the recesses, and you don't want to do that. You want to keep them, right. So we can, as I say, easily, quite easily, just wipe this up. Really nice and easy. Hopefully you can see there, nicely done. It's looking kind of nice and smart now. However, there's going to be some sort of tricky areas to sort of get into. So what we can do is we can come along with a paintbrush and use the same technique. Dip it into the thinners, then on a kitchen paper towel we can just touch it just to make the brush nice and damp, right. And then what we can do is pick out those sort of awkward areas where we might not be able to get in there with a cotton wool bud, you know, under this mass driver, right. And as we sort of go along with the brush, we want to get a kitchen paper towel out and just sort of clean it off. Just keep cleaning it off, making sure it's just nice and damp, right. And then we just get in there and just brush off any awkward areas like so. It does take a little bit longer doing it this way, right, but you know, you do nicely get there in the end. Just getting underneath here, and we can just clean that up, right. So I'm going to go along and just keep on cleaning it up. The cool thing about this is if you make any mistakes, it doesn't matter, because we've got that gloss coat on, right, and because this enamel type panel line wash is it doesn't dry till say tomorrow, we can hydrate it. So we could, if you made a big mistake, just completely remove it using this technique, and then we can just reapply the panel line wash and you know, just start from scratch again. So it's just, there's no way really of making a mistake with this stuff. So I'm going to continue going around and cleaning it up. So I've just cleaned that up, and hopefully as you can see now, that's looking a little bit more sort of tidier, but we've got all the nice detail of this model just really nicely coming out. It just really sort of sets it off, this stage does. So now we've basically come to the final stage of finishing the model side. I mean, I'll show you some of the better bases in a bit, but all we need to do now is do a matte coat. So I really do recommend Winsor & Newton's matte UV varnish. This is a really cool way of sort of mattifying your models. I've used quite a few mattes before, but this one really does give us a nice matte finish. It doesn't change the colour or lightens the model. It just, you know, puts a nice matte coat down, and you've got the added UV varnish protection to go with it. And this as well is also helping with the whole, you know, you're messing with your models, playing on the games, you know, you're constantly picking it up. You've got gloss coats on here, matte coats on here. It just protects all this paintwork. So again, we're going to come in with some homebrew thinners. You can check out a tutorial on how to make your own thinners on the Genesis Models website. I have shook this off camera. After shaking it, you want to leave for maybe 5 or 10 minutes because it does get a little bit on the bubbly side, so just leaving it a bit to get those bubbles popping away just helps a nice bit. And then we're going to pour in the usual 50-50 mix, Right, so that's 50% thinners to 50% matte varnish. Right, and we're going to mix that up with a paintbrush as usual. Right, and then what we're going to simply do is just like we've done with our first lot of spraying with the base coat, base colour, and then the gloss, just plain and simply start off, you know, check how you're flowing, and then just do a light misty coat. Right, now this is what I love about putting a matte coat on, is you really start to see the model sort of come alive, because it's been all shiny from putting the gloss coats on, you know, the Panaline wash we put on there, you know, that's kind of dried matte, so then you've got this sort of matte stroke glossiness, and now it just all comes together being all nice and matte. We can cut to air just to dry that off now, right, and then you know, it really does happen nice and quickly. We can then sort of put on a light coat, which should start to mattify this and sort of bring it together. Right, so if you can see there, you know, that's going to be our sort of almost finished touch there. Maybe one more light matte coat just on top of there, and that is basically the model part of it done, and then we can work on some basing.